This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. It's Alexa Linton here, and you're here on the Whole Horse Podcast. And today on the podcast, I have a very exciting guest. I mean, they're all exciting. This one is exciting to me because of her passion and experience with traditional Chinese medicine and acupressure and five elements theory, which are near and dear to my heart as an equine sport therapist. So thank you for being here, Susan. I'm really stoked about our conversation today.
It is a total pleasure to be here. I'm really excited as well.
Awesome. And as we were chatting before our conversation, starting recording, we realized there's lots of territory to cover. This is an area that I haven't really gotten a lot into on the podcast yet. And so today, I think, Susan, we're kind of having, for you as listeners, we're going to kind of start at the beginning and move forward of what this stuff is all about, how it can help you and your horses, and how you can work with it on a daily basis to help. So because it's just, it's so potent and easy. So Susan, can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, I know it's a long story, but in a little bit of a nutshell, how you came to this work and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I think probably just about every person who listens to this podcast, I was one of those completely obsessed horse girls who
Yes.
just could not think of anything else. Everything was second step to horses. And so I went through my whole childhood just completely crazy about horses. But when, you get through high school and your parents are very happy that you're actually going to, quote unquote, leave horses and get serious and go to a good school, all of that kind of stuff. And I did that like I was supposed to do. But I mean, I love the intellectual world. I went to Wellesley. I just loved studying art history, all of these incredible things. But the horses were they were put on the back burner at that time for me, and I missed them so much. But as I graduated and still was kind of floundering, didn't know what I wanted to do, had lots and incredible adventures, moved to Hawaii, did, really fun and exciting things. But again, horses weren't part of it. And so I was approaching the end of my 20s, still wondering what in God's name was I supposed to be doing with my life. And I started dreaming about horses every single night. I mean, every night. And sometimes I'd be riding, sometimes I'd be teaching riding. And I mean, I'd taught like really beginner level equestrian stuff. But I knew honestly that, I was not some amazing rider. It was unlikely that I should be a trainer or something like that. So I was like, what am I supposed to do with all these dreams? I'm clearly supposed to do something. So I went and I took one ride, one lesson. I hadn't been on a horse in 10 years, which is kind of hard to even imagine. And was so the people there were just really touched because they said, it's so amazing. You're spending so much time grooming. And like to set up, I was like, oh, that's right. We're supposed to ride too. I mean, just being with the horses was so amazing that just sitting there and brushing the horse for half an hour seemed like total heaven to me.
Yes.
And so the riding was great too, but I kept having the dreams. At the time, I did not have the kind of income that would have supported me owning a horse or, doing all those things. And yet the dreams kept coming. And this was a real transformative time in my life. I ended up, breaking up with someone, starting up with someone new. And within 2 months, the two of us had moved to Sonoma County. So I was no longer in the city of Oakland, California.
Mhm.
And I knew, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but something's waiting. And that was in 1992. And
Mhm.
it was an extraordinary time to be a horse person in Sonoma County, California. There were some just truly incredible teachers there. So people like Deborah Patillo, who went ahead and created equinology, which maybe you know is a
Yes.
really
Yes.
high level program, sports massage. She now teaches programs across the globe, and Carrie Ridgway was there, and
Mhm.
Dr. Carrie Ridgway was really, one of my teachers, just an amazing individual. And so I, my husband was actually looking through a book, a massage book, because he was doing massage on people at the time. And said, "Oh, I found your new profession. You should be a horse massage therapist." And I laughed. I said, "Oh, you can't do that as a job, you know." And long story short, I ended up studying shiatsu on humans, knowing that there were no ways to locally to get massage training at the time for horses. But I figured if I get trained in shiatsu, it'll be close enough
Yep.
because they use, clothes on, so it'll be kind of like fur, and started, studying with Diana Thompson, who was also in that area, all sorts of incredible people coming through there. And before I knew it, um, it had completely become clear that acupressure, shiatsu, all of this stuff was my future.
Mm.
And it just was like, oh my God, I finally found my my thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was just totally clear. And I was really, really lucky. I just was in the right place, the right time in a few places, and ended up having, a lot of work there in Sonoma County. Ended up, long story, getting involved in the endurance world, which at that time was a little bit lower key at that time.
Mhm.
And I was able to hook up with, the United States Equestrian Team when they went to different FEI level, World Cup events. And, I went to Dubai, and I went to, the Netherlands, and had all these incredible things just kind of like come out of nowhere. Because there weren't many of us doing that in the early
Yep.
90s.
Totally.
Um, and so just a little bit of things, people would be like, oh my God, how is this possible that you're touching these animals? And we're seeing incredible results. You get better movement, better performance, better organ health, better behavior.
Yep.
Just everything gets better when you get your hands on. And I think now we're much more accustomed to, there's a couple of massage therapists that are coming to the big barns, and several of the acupuncturists, the veterinarians are coming in with acupuncture and chiropractors. But in those days, we were definitely in the minority. And
Mhm.
I remember once telling a young man that I met what I did, and he just laughed. Like, he said, "Well, you're joking, right? Like, you can't actually do massage on horses and have that be your work." But it has been the greatest. I think we've been at it like 28 years now. And my husband now, has become a part of our business too. He does a lot of the energy work. And I do the acupressure and all of the animal related stuff, and we kind of all blend it together. And it's just been an amazing,
Mm.
amazing journey that's taken me between here and Europe. I mean, we have worked with hundreds of students, and just seen what everyday horse people can do simply by getting their hands on the surface of the bodies. It's incredible.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. There's definitely parallels with my journey, and
Right.
yeah, definitely, and that sense of just finding that thing that
Yeah,
really really speaks to, heart and soul, in us, and yeah, so I really hear the resonance there, and I want to get into here, Susan, because some people may, hear acupressure or traditional Chinese medicine, and they might have images of what that is with
yeah,
horses. Would you share sort of what some typical work that you're doing, or some of the ways that you begin this kind of work?
absolutely. So I do, I think a lot of us who do these kinds of things with horses, um, especially when we've been doing it a while, like you and I both have,
Hmm.
you end up integrating in not only your core thing, but a lot of other things as well. So it ends up being your own unique blend of what you do with animals. And my journey was certainly that. But the core of it for me, the absolute heart of it, is this concept of working with animals by doing gentle touch on the surface of the body or working on a more energetic level. I work on both and sometimes both in one session.
Hmm.
Um, and watching the body kind of unravel. And I mean that in the maybe not unravel, more unfurl, like a tight bud, just all kind of in the early spring. Everything's
Hmm.
kind of hidden, and it's just like the when the sun comes out in spring, and those blossoms just unwrap themselves and open themselves to the sun. And this is very much what I see in the horses that start to be able to take in these sessions with us, is they all of that tension, and sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's aggression, sometimes it's body pain, whatever, it just kind of opens up and lets go and finds a better place of balance, and also a better place of just expression of that horse's true nature. And the way that we do that is actually fairly simple, because really the most complicated thing that I really do with horses is I will touch these places on the horse's body that have been known on humans and animals for hundreds and hundreds of years to create changes within both the physiology and the energetics of the animal, to create better health. And we see that both on a physical level as well as an emotional level.
Hmm. Yes, yes. I love that image of the unfurling of a bud, um, and there really isn't. I don't know. You probably agree that there really isn't anything better than experiencing
Oh,
that in a horse.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the truth is, I mean, we as animal people, and I was really chuckling. I was listening to your podcast about your story just yesterday,
Hmm.
and you were laughing about how you had thought that you were only going to work with the horses. And
Yep.
we all come to it like this. I have so many students that say, oh my God, the reason I want to come and work with animals is I really don't like people that much. I've had so many students say that. And I think all of us drawn to the animal work are drawn to the animals because we innately see their goodness and all the gifts that they're giving to the humans they live with. And we want to connect with that. And that's so powerful. But I'm sure you know this as well as I, that once you start working with the animals, you're also working with their people. And the most amazing unfurling also happens with the people that are in contact with that transformative process, which to me, oh, that's
Yeah.
where it gets
That's
really
where
exciting.
that's where it gets real good. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I feel like I'm often on like a covert mission sometimes, where I'm
Oh,
like, I'm not going to tell them
nope.
exactly what's going to happen.
Completely.
And I just
Completely.
kind of go, I'll just watch.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and it's been fascinating for me because now that I'm entering my 5th year of osteopathy in September, of human osteopathy, and the number of my horse my humans with horses that are
Yeah.
now coming to see me and starting to do their work, and real, that has been actually so rewarding, because then you go out and see the horse and you're like, okay, I
Oh
can
yeah.
see what's shifting here, right?
Yes.
I can really see the changes that are happening. So yeah, yeah,
And
and I love the for you that you're seeing something similar in the humans.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And so what we
amazing.
see, for example, is I started seeing this with people who are really not open to change and transformation in some of my endurance clients. And
Yes.
these were hard driving, type A, super ultra competitive riders that were riding at the top of the not only the American scene, but they were some of the top riders in the world. And they were doing incredible things with these horses. And their horses usually, yeah, they needed help here and there, but it was amazing actually to see that the horses' bodies, if they were working at that level, I was shocked to see how healthy they were. You'd
Wow.
think that, oh, the poor horses. No, these were horses that had natural talent. They were working at their top level, and they were being trained in ways that were pretty impressively, powerfully good.
Yeah.
But it was the people who would say, oh, yes, I have a plate in here, and I have a pin in there, and I
Yes.
have, I mean, they were a freaking mess. And yet they're sitting on those horses for 100 miles. Gee, what a surprise to think that that might influence the horse's ability to move well. And so
Yes.
I could connect with them on strictly on their desire to win and say, don't you think it might be a good idea to have my husband work on you too while they're at the meet? And it doesn't cost you a thing because you guys have already hired us to work for your team and they're still resistant, right?
Yep.
Ooh, I don't want to have someone touch me. Um, but they would have a session with my husband and they'd say, oh, I get it.
Yep.
My horse is having to carry that
Yep.
down the trail. And what would happen with these people, not all the time, obviously, but the ones who really stuck with it, is they would unfurl as well. And these are
Mhm.
people that they would talk to me and say, like, I can't tell anybody about this because nobody in my life would understand. And they probably wouldn't have. And
Mhm.
yet, this unfurling would occur to them, and they became the greatest messengers for, I know you think it's crazy, but go try this. And they were amazing advocates for what people like you and I do
Yep.
because they had seen what it could create, not only in their writing, but in their lives as well.
Yes. Yes, and I find it actually very interesting, the resistance that a lot of us have towards that type of self care,
Yeah,
right? Where
yeah,
we'll go out and spend hundreds of dollars
yeah,
on body work for our horses
yeah,
and be like, yeah, I'm good,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
and recognizing like I'll literally, if I have a horse person in the office, like I don't have enough time often for an intake of every single injury they've had. Like,
You can't. Yeah.
you can't. Like, okay, give me an estimate on how many times you've fallen on your tailbone. Like, how many concussions? How many, any broken bones? Like, how many times has your feet been stepped on? These sorts of things, right? Give me the big incidents.
Yeah.
And I try to be as thorough as possible, but like, man, we go through a lot. Like, even myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one time
Yep.
that I was,
Yep.
doing something dumb and fell off and, landed on
Yeah.
my neck, those sorts of things, that we don't even think about, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I I see it all the time as well. And I don't know, maybe you have a theory on why we have such a hard time, you know,
Um,
um, giving
I think
that back to ourselves.
we're really afraid of change.
Yeah.
I think it's very threatening to change our energetic system to something that is unknown. And I think many of us are I use that word unfurl and unravel, and I switched it from unravel to unfurl very quickly because the
Mhm.
word unravel means like, oh my God, I'm unraveling, as if I'm coming apart
Yep.
and it's chaotic and I don't know where it's going to go.
Yep.
But the truth is, for many of us, when the process of unfurling will include many stages that do indeed feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
unraveling. And that's scary because you don't know where it's going to end. And in the retrospect, you can look back and go, oh my God, thank God. Look at what my life has become. And look what I know now. Look at the greater level of peace or physical
Yes.
body balance. I mean, it's amazing where your life can go. But when you don't know that and it is unknown, it's scary.
Yeah.
And so I see this in my students all the time as well. We don't tend to tell our students, it's not a very big selling point for someone who's going to come and study with me for 2 years, to tell them, your life may really look different 2 years from now.
Yes.
What?
I
I don't hear that.
oh my gosh.
Scary. But it
Yes.
happens again and again and again. I remember going to shiatsu school, and it was a fairly short program. It was very intense, but it was just 10 weeks. But then you had, like, I think 6 months or something to do the field work and then come back at the end. And by the time we got through the 10 weeks, we had already lost half the class. It had
Mm.
gone from a 30 people in the class
Yep.
to 15. And then by the time you got to the 6 months later, there was only two of us that completed the program.
Yep.
And I think it's because you watch people dropping like flies because of the transformative nature of the work, and people either needing to just pause and kind of work through that,
Yep.
and other people going, oh, baby, not for me. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And just backing away as quickly as possible. And I think that's fine. I really think that it's when it's your time, it's going to happen. And it's a beautiful and incredible thing. And hopefully you have the people to guide you and support you and love you all the way through it, and the
Yes.
animals to do the same.
Yeah.
And they will. I mean, what I see with the people is they go through these processes. And if they have the animals with them, the animals going through and showing them, look what it looks like when I feel better. You're going to feel better too. And it is
Mhm.
a miraculous, wondrous relationship that I see happening. And in fact, with horses, what I see again and again and again is, maybe not, I don't know if that's true for, like a sports massage program, which is a little more analytical. But for our type of work, which is very energetic and
Mhm.
um, allows that process to occur if you're open to it. If you're not interested, okay. But if you're interested in it, it does allow that. And I see that so many people come to us because of a horse or a dog or a cat that changed their life, changed, like, they had XYZ problems that the vet didn't know what to do with, the people in their life, the trainer, the shearer, nobody knew what to do with this horse or this person, or I mean, this animal. And so in searching for solutions, everything, everything changes in their life, or at least in their horse life. And it's a
Mhm.
it's a pretty amazing thing to see how,
Yes.
again, you come thinking, oh, I'm just going to study some things with Susan, and I'll have some points to use. And that's fine. I love doing that. It's total passion for me. But for the people that really want to dive in and really want to allow the Chinese medicine to work on them and through them and around them and surround them, wow, the
Mm.
transformation is extraordinary.
Oh,
Just
that's
as it's done for me as well. I mean, I'm
yes.
totally transformed as well. So,
Oh, I'm in that boat too. I'm in that
oh
boat
yeah.
too. I think you probably listened on my podcast. It was like when I went to equine sport therapy school and I just got demolished like in the best possible way. It was just definitely unraveling,
Oh yeah.
which is absolutely necessary. I look back and I
Yeah.
was like, yes, that was so critical in my journey.
Exactly. And
Grateful
it's
that
beautiful, actually.
yeah, it really is. It really, really is. So yeah, yeah. And I would love here today, Susan, because I'm a geek about this stuff, and I've mentioned it a little bit in my work. But I know that there's a lot of my listeners that aren't as yeah, dialed in, or they haven't gotten the details on some of this work with how we work with traditional Chinese
Right,
medicine
right,
with horses, and what some of those sort of base foundations of this work would be.
right. So, I think when people hear that I do horse massage, so of course in the beginning that I would just say that because it's just easier than explaining what horse acupressure is. Um, I think people just assume that I go in and I massage a couple muscles in the horse, and they assume because they're not horse people that I must be working on race horses because who else would do something like that? And then the horse is able to run faster, and that's where my business comes from. So that's kind of that simplistic overview of what the average Joe who's not involved with horses would think. But as you know, it is just a tiny sliver of the kind of horses and the kind of people that we are able to help. um, Most of the people that come to me are coming because there is some sort of either movement issue that they're wanting help with,
Mhm.
or some sort of behavioral issue that they're wondering if I can help with, or there's some sort of kind of internal organ something, like maybe the horse is getting chronic colic or has a skin problem or something like that. So I would say those are the three basic things that I tend to work with. And I can address it very simply through massage sometimes. And like I said, like if there's a sore shoulder and it's just muscle based, I can go in and do the kinds of releases and massage that's my shiatsu training. I can do that. But where it gets really exciting for me as someone who is over the moon excited about acupressure is starting to bring in all of the Chinese medicine. Now, Chinese medicine, it's usually called in our, common parlance would be TCM or traditional
Mhm.
Chinese medicine. But in fact, the style that I follow is really more classical Chinese medicine, and it's a hair splitting thing. But it's an older branch of Chinese medicine that's really based much more on the some other theories than that are kind of more typically known. And so, what we're trying to do is to tap into these energetic pathways that are set up in the body. So, the body is made up of, that's not even the way to say it. On the surface of the body, there are these pathways or meridians, we call them, or sometimes channels, that have all of these places on the map. And it looks like a subway map with, subway stops along the way, where those subway stops, maybe it's in the hock or in the shoulder or on the neck, has a certain effect or transmits a certain message to the body when you touch it. And so, if I, for example, want to work with a sore shoulder, there are points in the shoulder, trigger points, and actual, points on these pathways. But some of the best points are actually far away from where the problem is. And so I might be working on a point on the hind end to help with a tooth problem
Mhm.
or things like this. And just by touching these places, which I've learned through all of my studies, I am able to send messages to the body that wouldn't you like to come to better balance? Wouldn't you like to feel better in the body? Remember the kind of balance that you had when things were healthy. And the horse, being the amazing healing creature that it is, the body responds by finding better balance if it wants to. Some horses don't want to heal or aren't ready to heal, but for the horse that's open and receptive to healing, simply by touching these places on their body and reminding their body system how to heal, it works. And it sounds very miraculous, and it certainly feels that way when you're doing it as well.
Mhm.
But it's actually quite it's kind of mundane in a way. Like you just know that small intestine 9 does shoulder problems and large intestine 4 does foreleg problems. And once you know those buttons, it's like flicking a switch so that the body can go, oh, right, okay, we're going to hook that up in the body and feel better.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that description. Yeah, that sense of connecting the dots and like
Yeah,
reconnecting maybe something that wasn't yeah, communicating in the way that it could.
right.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
for a lot of us, when we think of flicking a switch, like a light switch on the thing, the light switch is visible to us. It's on the surface of the wall. It is, we can touch it, we can connect with it, and it's tangible. But the truth is, what's happening with the light switch, A, isn't really us. We're not really doing anything other than mechanically hooking up a circuit, but it's the circuit itself, the electrical wires that are in the walls of your house, that's turning on the light and, doing whatever, powering whatever product it is you want to to power.
Yeah.
And so I think acupressure is very similar in that we are there to trigger that response if the animal's open to it. It's just an activation. It's like flicking that switch. And as long as the circuitry is open to it, the horse can turn the whole thing on themselves. And so we are present for it, but we aren't actually doing it. And so we're really just more present for that process happening within the horse themselves. It's just a suggestion, an offering.
Mm.
And the horses are very, very capable of healing themselves. They just sometimes need a little nudge, like a little elbow in the side, like, hey, you can hook up your stomach better than you
Yeah.
had it before and let those ulcers go or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really, really does do that work.
Hmm. And I love that concept of the offering up and the
Yes.
sort of allowing, I think for a lot of people, we think of like, okay, you're the healer, you're doing everything, like this is about you,
Right.
whereas I think once we get, into it more, we're like, oh, so this has nothing to do with me whatsoever.
Right.
I'm basically, acting as, I know in osteo we talk about acting as a fulcrum for the body. The body's doing the work. We we just place ourselves in the best possible
Right.
situation to assist it, support and catalyze that work that wants to occur. When you talk about that idea, just to give everybody sort of a visual of supporting a horse to do their own work with that, what does that look like in real time?
So it's really as simple as counting to three, which I love
Okay.
because there's a lot of techniques like you as an osteopath you're not going to suggest that your people go out and do complex osteopathic moves with a person or a horse until they have proper training. Same thing with chiropractic, acupuncture, where you're piercing the skin. The nice thing about acupressure is it's as simple as counting to three. So I've got a three-step process that I use 99% of the times that I'm stimulating a point. So these acupressure points, as I mentioned before, are just places on the surface of the body, and they're all over the body. In a beautiful, there's kind of a map of them, so I kind of know where to expect what. And I can go to that place on the body that I know has to do with the colic or the hind end problem or the aggression or whatever. And the three-step process is as simple as just taking a flat hand, contacting the body, and gently stroking the side where that point lies. It kind of says hello,
Yeah.
kind of says something different's going to happen. Bring your attention, your focus here. I have a message for you. So that kind of opens the conversation. And then, as long as the animal is not saying, "Hey, not today," as long as they're like, "Yeah, sure. What do you got for me?" I'm going to take my fingers, usually, 2 or 3 finger tips, and just place it gently into the point, onto the skin. Sometimes I'm going to do a little circle with it. Sometimes I'm just going to hold it. I'm definitely going to be breathing, and I'm going to be really trying to feel how deep does this horse want me to press. Maybe it's super, super light. Maybe they actually want deep pressure. And I kind of work with that. Again, breathing, kind of keeping my full intention of offering to them. the this healing moment if they want it.
Mhm.
And then once I feel like I'm done, it can be anywhere from sometimes 5 seconds, usually longer, but sometimes very short, to sometimes I go as long as a couple of minutes. But usually I'm done within like maybe 45 to 60 seconds. I'm going to gently relieve my pressure. So it kind of like taking your hand off the switch, as it were.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to close out the interaction with step number 3, which is just repeating that flat hand stroke. And I'm just going over that area to say, thanks for working with me. Let me smooth that all out for you in case it was a little intense. And now I'll let you kind of process it on your own. And so if you had only one point they were going to do, and definitely with my clients, I would leave them just with a couple of points. I don't leave them with, 2 hours worth of points to do.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as that to create really lasting change in the body, the
Mm.
mind, the spirit, the whole thing can be that simple.
Wow.
And ideally, with horses, you want to do it on both sides. So you might take, I don't know, all told, maybe 2 minutes on one side, take yourself over to the other side, 2 minutes on the other side. So in less than 5 minutes, that can be a complete session right there. And now, when I go and do a session with a client, of course, it's going to be longer than that. I know a lot more points, and I have all of the kind of the intellectual stuff in my tool bag to know, a much greater selection of points. I know, oh, if this horse has XYZ issues, I'm going to want to do ABC points. And you can get the mind involved, you can get the intellect involved, you can build out a much more complex kind of practice.
Mhm.
But for my clients or my beginner students, it can be that simple, that just by getting your hands on maybe a relaxation point, for example, it can be that simple and still quite effective. And you can see that because the horses will go droopy eyes, their lips quiver, they lower their head, the licking and chewing, big breathing, the belly sounds, all the kinds
You
of
there,
things
Susan?
associate. There, what's that? What's that?
Susan?
Yeah?
Oh, we just lost your sound for just a
Oh,
second. Yes, there
okay.
you are. That's great.
Okay, okay, good. Good.
And you were just starting to say you can see that.
Oh, okay. So the kinds of things that you would see are the kinds of things that you'd see on any kind of healing session, whether it's Reiki or massage or any kind of relaxing thing where, the ears might kind of go to either side and the head goes down and the licking and chewing and the droopy eyes and the big breaths. All of those are really common signs that we would see in a horse for whom the effect is taking hold. And I even call it the acutrance because whether it's 1 point or 50, if it's working, the animals will often go into this like trance like
Mhm.
state where they're just letting the whole system kind of cook in all of this information that they're telling their nervous system and their circulatory system and their brains, and everything's kind of realigning with the new information. And it's a powerful state for the horse. And often it's a powerful state for anyone that's standing nearby as well. So you'll often have, other horses that are trying to come nearby to
Mhm.
kind of just
Mhm.
swim in the soup there. And other people, oh wow, you got to get quiet and peaceful. So it's a powerful state that animal is going into in order to recalibrate or realign their entire system.
Mm. Yes, I love that state. And like you said, you could be in a barn working on one horse and
Oh yeah,
everybody else is getting involved, and
definitely.
yawning and yeah, very, very, very cool to see that and hard not to be brought into more stillness ourselves. So
Absolutely.
yes,
And
yes.
I think that what I love about acupressure and the shiatsu that goes along with it, the shiatsu is a Japanese form of massage. And so it's just the massage strokes and the stretches that go along with the acupressure, is that it really can be used by horses and people who have a really wide range of interests. So if you want to keep it really simple, I want my horse to have better collection, and I'm a dressage rider, and I'd like to get better dressage test scores. I can come and I can do that with you, and your horse, hopefully, if all goes well, we can help to get the body feeling better and getting more energy to the hind end, and moving better and all that good stuff. And we never have to talk about energy or meridians or transformation. We can absolutely keep it to that. And I love that we can do that for that kind of client.
Mm.
And we can also work with the absolute most woo, totally on the other end of the spectrum level person who wants to really work with the energetics. We have people that come to me, for example, that say, my horse is going through XYZ emotional trauma. Can we work with that? Can we work with kind of the energetics of the body? We can do that. And so what I love about this system, it's so old and so rich and so diverse that you really can reach for whatever kind of tool that you need for to meet the needs of the horse and the client. And it's pretty lovely to be able to do that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that great spectrum of the work, because I know for me that was one of my the things that sort of um yeah, created a fire for me around this type of work, and why, I'll share very basic parts of it with my clients, because I do find that it can work with so many levels.
Yes,
And I'm kind of one of those people that, I like it when something has yeah, a lot, a big repertoire. It can kind of yeah, land and be helpful in a lot of places.
absolutely.
So yeah, grateful for this work, and that it can be applied to horses, and that it has been, adapted in that way. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about is one of my favorites is working with the ting points.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there might be people out there that don't even know what those are. There
right.
probably are. So would you share a little bit about the
Sure.
ting points? I'd love to hear, yeah,
And
your
it,
your
and
your
it also
understanding.
occurs to me that, since this is a podcast, so this is all kind of verbal information.
Yeah,
If people are interested in a photograph of where these points lie, maybe what I will do is this weekend I'll put up a post of all of the ting points on our Facebook at Elemental
awesome.
Acupressure. So that if they're just wanting to see, like, where are they? Because they're so easy to find and they're
Yes,
so accessible to everybody who has
totally,
a horse.
totally.
They're not the best points necessarily for dog and cat people, but this is
No,
a horse podcast. Let's dive into the horses, and they
absolutely.
are some of the best, like, starter points because they're so easy to find. So the ting points, also called Jing Well points, and I've been renaming the points in my audacious way. I call them turning points because
Oh,
they are a
yes.
place where the energy is two meridians are kind of basically meeting there, and they're changing direction. It's coming down through the leg and then back up through the leg, and so there's this very
Mhm.
dynamic energy at these points. They all lie right above the coronary band. So that's right where the hair meets the hard tissue of the hoof. And it's about one finger's width above that line. And they all lie. If you were to look at your horse from bird's eye view, the hoof would be like a clock.
Yep.
And you would have a ting point at all of the even numbers on the clock. So, for example, the point at the very front of the front hoof would be at the 12 o'clock
Mhm.
position,
Mhm.
whereas you go around at the 2, 4, 6, 12.
Yep.
And the only tricky one is the one in the back, is between the balls of the heel, but it's not on the back of the bone of the pastern there. It is definitely down on that little shelf in
Yep.
between the balls of the heel. So people should understand that when they're pressing the point, they're actually like facing the ground with their thumb. They're pressing down on that little shelf. not hard or anything, but that's where they're contacting. Anyway, so that's where all the points are, as at 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, all around the hoof, both on the front and the hind hooves. And all of these points are either the first or the last point on an energetic channel, which means that they are the farthest away points from all of the organs and the internal body works that it's associated with. And so you might think, oh, if they're that far away, these points would be less effective. But actually, it's the reverse. It's almost as if you're out at the hooves and you have enough time to gain your momentum energetically to get to the heart or the liver or the
Mhm.
stomach or whatever it is you're trying to get to, it has more time to build up momentum and give more juice to the body from that farther away place.
Mhm.
So they have so much energy. And the other thing about the ting points, or these turning points, is that they're really, really good for chronic issues, but they're particularly good for acute issues.
Oh.
So you can use them for things that have been around forever, absolutely. But they are particularly good if, let's say, your horse overdid it and he's just a little sore and stiff, and it's just an acute thing, or he has, an acute issue in, I don't even know what it's, my mind is going a blank. But the point is, for acute issues,
Mhm.
they're going to be particularly useful and to be used to help the body. And I saw this in very real situations, just so people can understand that the you can also use them as kind of test points. So, for example, if you feel along the points and you find that there's a little dip for each one, usually you'll feel just this little tiny groove, a really little tiny dip, kind of about the size of your thumb. Um, and that's normal. That's supposed to be there. And it kind of sucks you in, and there's like a little place where the energy can pool and kind of be there for your activation.
Mhm.
But sometimes you'll go into these points and they'll be like, they feel like they're 6 inches deep. And of course they're not, but they'll be deeper. Like, you sometimes even can see from a distance that these points are really like hollowed out. And if you see that, or if on the other hand you see one that's kind of puffy and it looks almost like a hive, where it's kind of, there's an
Mhm.
edema just at that point. This is telling you that something's going on with the associated meridian, and these are again an energetic channel, and all of those channels have to do with specific organs. And this is all can very quickly get down the rabbit hole of Chinese
Mhm.
medicine, which I won't take you in. But just to understand that when you see those points, and you touch them, and you bring better kind of tissue health to those points, all of the organs get the benefit. So I had a situation once where I was seeing a brand new client, didn't know anything about the client. She didn't even really know me very well at the time, but it was kind of a referral situation. And I went and I started to do the testing. So I went around and I was testing all the different ting points, and I got to the stomach ting point, and it was really reactive, which it isn't usually. Horse didn't like me there, was really uncomfortable. It was really a deep hole, and it was like someone was sticking him with needles there. I mean, he
Yep.
was unhappy. And I said, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't like this. I don't know your horse well enough to judge what this means. But, because this is such a new situation, I just think can we just hold off on our first session? And, I'll come back next week or whatever it was I said. And she said, she was really confused. And she said, you've taken all your time to come out. You're going to do this and not even charge me. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know where this is going, but I just get a feeling that I'm where I shouldn't be.
Yep.
And sure enough, that night, that horse had a severe colic.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And so he was telling us through his body very clearly, like, I'm not well. And because she was kind of alerted, she was actually able to, get the care for him, and the horse did fine. The horse was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But it was one of those situations where I was so grateful that I hadn't gone in and done work, and she, there's no way that she could say that I caused it, and that instead the horse got the proper medical care that it very, very clearly needed. And it obviously, that has happened to be once in the past 30 years,
Yep.
but it is most of the time, it's totally fine to go in and touch and they love it. But that just shows you the power of these points to show you
Mhm.
how the body's internal organs can actually express themselves all the way out on the coronary band of all things.
It's amazing. I
It is.
I I remember being taught I love the term turning point, by the way. I remember
Thank
being
you.
taught these points and just being blown away. And having one horse, I recall this one horse and went into a complete trance on one of the ting points and was just like stay there forever. And I we were there I think I was there about 4 or 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it released and he almost fell on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
It
was such a
happens.
big release.
Yeah. And
And I couldn't believe it. I was, wow, okay. Like that was a big thing for that horse.
yep.
Yawning and yawning and yawning. It was
Yep.
huge, huge letting go in that moment. And it really kind of was a turning point for me of going, yeah, these are important. They
Yeah.
make a big difference. And I know for myself doing energy work, I find them to be incredibly good for grounding.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
because they bring presence,
Yep.
for those horses that don't seem to know that they have feet or
Yeah.
legs. um, they can be amazing, uh, in that regard, and I'll often be like, if a horse is tricky for the farrier, like, "Okay, you need to
Yeah.
be doing your ting points
Yeah.
regularly
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
this horse." Yeah. Yeah.
I used them a lot when I was doing the endurance work. I haven't actually been involved with endurance very much since the 90s. That was a real focus time that I did a lot of endurance work. And at that time, it was really kind of like being just like thrown into the fray, because when you have these horses coming into the vet checks, it's chaos. It's utter magnificent chaos. And you have to help that horse in, maybe 5 minutes. And I'm not sure, I actually have heard stories that maybe even some of the acupressure isn't even allowed in the vet checks anymore. I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't kept up. But at the time, it was an incredible place to go with a horse that's in the middle of an event like that, because you are able to, like you said, remind these crazy Arab horses that are like, they're like up in the clouds with the amount of activity and motion and drive that they have. Oh, yes, I have feet. And so they kind of stop that giraffe posture with their low back and high head thing. And instead, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get to rest now? Oh, okay. So just by doing those ting points, and they were
Mm.
so good as acute points, because at that point at a vet check, I don't want to start,
No.
reorganizing inner organs and stuff. I'm just trying to help them get through the race and feel good and
Yeah.
get their full benefit of their rest. And I know that actually endurance sometimes has some less, shall we say, lovely stories associated with it these days. But the people that I was involved with, they wanted nothing but what was the absolute best for their animals. And they saw that doing these ting points, were huge tools for them. They would actually do them themselves. If I couldn't get to them, maybe
Mhm.
I'm working with a
Mhm.
team of five, they'd be down there doing them themselves, because it would help bring down their respiration. It would help, you know,
Mm.
just the whole body
Yeah.
would go into a state of rest,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful thing.
Wow. So supporting the recovery process.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very cool. We only have a couple minutes left. It always goes so fast. I don't know how this happens. And there's so much more that I do want to talk about, but it may be something that we want to hold off on until our next time together, which I
Sure.
hope we get to do soon.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yes, I've just absolutely loved this conversation, and I want to just open it up to you, Susan, with any last pieces that might really kind of cap off today, or that 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 you want to bring in around this today?
Well, I think, and if people end up, following me in social media or listening to other podcasts I've done or whatever, they're going to hear me say the same thing again and again. It is my mission, my motto, my absolute reason for doing what I do. And that is that you, the horse owner, can do it. And I think in our world, a lot of times we are given the message that we should leave it to the experts. And if you're talking about, oh, yes, your horse has colic, absolutely. You're
Mm-hmm.
calling the vet first. No questions. I am
Yeah.
absolutely a stickler about getting proper medical care. I do not ever stand in front of the vet, period. And I want to make that very clear. But having said that, once the vet's seen your horse for whatever the reason is, you can be a part of your animal's health
Just
care
just a
team.
second,
Yep.
Susan. I For some reason it is just being a
Well,
little bit fussy with the audio. So let's just see if that's come back now.
yeah.
There we go. Okay,
Okay, good.
excellent, excellent.
So do you
Um,
know where we left off?
it was around absolutely need vet care for things like
Yeah,
colic.
right, right.
Yeah.
So again, let's make sure that everybody understands that I am 100% in
Yes.
favor of you seeing your vet always. That's, I'm not trained as a vet. That's not my job. I'm just part of the healthcare team if I'm working with your horse. However, you as a horse lover, as a horse caretaker, you too are absolutely welcome to step into that circle and be a part of the horse care team. And that doesn't mean only being an advocate and the person that signs the checks. That also means you can participate by doing things like acupressure and really simple touch things. Because when you become a part of the process, you are more engaged, you are more likely to find, like, my horse isn't quite right and I should get some help with this. You are more likely to see success because you're doing it all the time instead of just once a month or once every 6 months. I want everyone to step into that circle and take ownership of that absolutely important role as the part of the healthcare team. And that is what I love about acupressure is it is safe, it is simple, and it is effective enough that you can have that be one of your tools. It doesn't have to be the
Mm,
only tool,
mm-hmm,
obviously, but
mm-hmm.
it can be one of the tools that you can use as the horse lover yourself and use it to further the well-being of your beloved horse.
Oh, what a perfect way to complete. Thank you. Very succinctly put and very important. I often get people asking me, "Do I need to have a gift to do this?" Like, is
No,
do have I been if I'm not
right.
bestowed with this gift of healing, like, can I do this? Yes, please, please get your
Yes.
hands on your horses and let them teach you and listen. And
So if we have a moment, I should actually share one more thing, and that
please.
is, um, there we did an article for Natural Horse about 10 years ago now, on a group of pony clubbers that did this work. And so I went down and I spent the day with the pony clubbers, and they were everywhere from age about 6 to like 16, maybe.
Mhm.
And those 6-year-olds were doing amazing, beautiful work with those horses. It's that simple and
Yep.
it's that safe. Yeah, you need some guidelines, duh. I mean, you do it safely, you do it smart,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely safe and effective, even for a child.
Mm,
So I think when we put our head around that, we can realize we can do it. And it
yeah.
reminds me of the story of this person I saw when I was in Switzerland teaching last year. Um, and this is a person I hadn't seen quite literally in 20 years. She had come to a class 20 years before, a 1 day class in acupressure, and had, just learned the points. It's a very simple class. Da da da. And she had been using it every single week in that 20 years because her horse liked
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And her horse had
Totally.
been young at the time, was now at, I think, 27, Icelandic horse that was still healthy, strong,
Mm,
everything. And she said, I have used this every week because he loves it. And I am convinced that it's part of the reason that he's so healthy at age 27.
amazing.
Wow.
That's
I love
so
that.
great. Yeah.
So you can do
Perfect.
it.
Perfect. So, Susan, how do people reach you, get in touch with you, learn with you?
Right, right. Our website is elementalacupressure.com. It's a little wonky at the moment. We're in the process of changing to this brand new site that's still being populated. So it's a little ugly at the moment, but there's stuff there. Um, and probably the best way to get in touch with me and to kind of see what we're up to is to follow us on Facebook or Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a thing called Point of the Week. And so each week we're giving really simple, manageable instructions about one point each week. And every other week is the horse week. Every other week is the small animal. So it just alternates. And so if you want to get started, it's that simple. Just follow
Mm.
Facebook.
Awesome. That's so great. And the links will all be listed at wholehorse.ca. I believe this is episode 58, this one. So we can head over
Congratulations.
to the website there and look up the links, and I will include those there. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us
Oh,
today,
thank
Susan.
you. Utter
Hmm.
pleasure for me as well. So,
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure for me as well. And I hope you all out there have enjoyed yourselves. And we will be back. There's lots more to talk about. So we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.
thank you so much.
To share that I am, loving doing remote sessions with some of you. I've been so grateful to hear from you and work with you and your horses. So thanks for that. And I hope I get to do more of that. If you're interested in a remote session with me, you can always email me at alexa@alexalinton.com. Okay. Have a wonderful week.